Hello and welcome to the very first podcast for Bonsai Stuff. I'm Scott Martin, the owner of Bonsai Matsu and host for this podcast. I wanted to do a podcast which would be informative, interesting, educational, maybe a little bit funny, but also something to sort of inspire, I suppose, people based in Melbourne, Australia. So a lot of what we're going to talk about is around this area and what relates to this region for bonsai. There will be things that apply, obviously, worldwide, but primarily it's for us here, us Aussies in Australia. I wanted to broach the fact that this will probably be the most unprofessional podcast. One, relating to bonsai, but secondly, probably available in the market. It's not designed to be professional, it's designed to be interesting. So just a little bit about myself. First memory of bonsai was shopping as a little kid with my grandpa at one of the major shopping centres and him getting me a little juniper and a small pot, which I managed to keep alive for about a whole of 2 weeks, which I'm sure is pretty common for a lot of people. But that was a long time ago, and then I suppose the interest ramped up more in 1989 when it started to take hold, and more recently back to 2010 or 2011, something like that. I went to RTN in Nagoya and did a short-term stay there, primarily focusing originally on black pines. And at the time, Peter T was the head apprentice, and he took me under his wing and taught me quite a lot. Stuff that I've learnt then I still pass on to this day and will stay with me throughout my bonsai journey. Juan Andreas was there also. He was doing his initial short-term stay before he commenced as the head apprentice the year after, when Peter left and went back to the States. One's from Costa Rica, and I went back year on year and spent more time with Juan, and he's got to be one of the nicest fellows I think I've ever met, as well as knowledgeable. His sort of cultural and technical side for bonsai is unbelievable. So yeah, I've got a lot from those guys. I've got a lot from HN, got a lot from Mr. Tanaka, who's the oyakata at HN, and like I said, I studied with them year on year for 5 or 6 years, and that has stayed with me and will stay with me forever. Now I've got my own bonsai school, Bonsai Matsu, doing training workshops and all that sort of stuff. But that's not what this is about. This is about just talking bonsai, so I can help you get through those little train trips and car rides and stuff like that. And hopefully it's something of interest to you. Planned frequency is maybe sort of once a month or thereabouts. I don't want to bombard or make it excessive, but I want to try and keep it relevant, seasonal and specific. So there's hopefully something in here for everyone. Right now, we're coming to the end of summer. Tomorrow's the calendar date for the start of autumn, but we're, in typical Melbourne fashion, experiencing a pretty late run at some warm weather. So I just had a look, and I think the next 5 days are mid to high 30s. So it's a scorching, dry, hot wind that we seem to suffer from here in late summer. It means that the lawn's all cracking under your feet as you walk on it, and watering becomes really, really important for your trees. You need to be mindful that at times like this, you're not focusing on what you need, but what the trees need. By that I mean watering when they need it, not when it suits your timetable. There's definitely some things you can do to help out, like maybe sheltering the trees during the warmth of the day. That'll help. But if we've got a hot, dry wind, then the pots are going to dry out, and the mix, regardless of what you've got in there, is going to dry out. Often I'll use an automated watering system, which is fairly reliable for me. It's not battery operated. It's a proper hardwired system that I can maintain from a phone, and I'll use the watering not necessarily to get water into the pots, but more to cool the environment which the trees are sitting in. So I'm a believer, you can water the foliage on your trees, because by the time it's hot enough to do any damage, like leaf burning or anything like that, the water's evaporated. So I wouldn't fuss too much about that. We are heading into autumn, as I said, calendar-wise as of tomorrow, but summer's definitely here for another week or so. But I have noticed, walking around my garden today, that a few of the maples and in particular, some of the big garden trees I've got, the pears and stuff like that, Manchurian pears, there's leaf colour starting to turn now. So, it will feel like summer for a week, but definitely the trees are going to start heading towards that dormancy period that we experience in mid to late autumn. Another couple of little tips that I use, or tricks that I use for helping with keeping moisture in the pots, especially around this time of year, is one of them's chopped up sphagnum moss. I actually shove it through a sieve so it's very, very fine, not coarse like it comes out of the packet. And then I'll gently I'll wet that into like a bucket or something like that, and then pat it onto the surface of the pot, so it creates like a very fine layer on top of the potting mix that you've got. And it does a couple of things. It helps protect the surface roots, but it also provides you with a telltale. When the pot's drying out, you'll find that the sphagnum reverts back to a very light white almost colour. That means that the moisture's gone from the pot and evaporated or been used by the tree, so it's time to water. So when it's warm like this, putting your hand onto the soil mix may not be necessarily the right thing to do. Using a moisture meter is always advisable until you understand your trees, but having the sphagnum on top will allow you to very quickly see which pots are drying out, when they're drying out, and when they need water. Another one is, if you don't have many trees, is to use wet hessian on top of the pots. So if you leave in the morning, water the trees, then soak up some hessian rag and put that over the pot, and that'll help cool the temperature of the pot. Because over summer, especially on a warm, direct sunlight day, you'll find that pot can get really, really quite hot, which will damage the roots on the inside and potentially cook them. It's not too much of an issue. They will bounce back from it, but you don't want it to be dried out too much, or the roots will be permanently damaged. It all comes back to some technical horticultural stuff, the process of transpiration with the trees, the ability of the tree to pass moisture effectively through its system, from the roots up the trunk, out the branches, and then evaporating out the needles, leaves, whatever there is on the tree. The ability or the efficiency of that system comes from the roots that you've got. So the better the root system, the quicker and more efficient the process of transpiration. And on top of that, the root system is generated by the soil mix that you're using. So the better the soil mix, that's more conducive to generating lots of fine fibrous feed roots. The better the root system you'll have, which means the better the process of transpiration. So it's deep, but the repotting of your trees is probably one of the most fundamental things you need to get right if you want happy, healthy bonsai for a very long time. I'm not going to get into that now, but it's definitely something which will be discussed further down the track. I was told in Japan that watering was one of the most difficult tasks to get right. Now, at the time I didn't think much about it, but now I know that's absolutely 100% correct. Focusing on wiring or pruning or anything like that, that's okay, but you need to get the basics right. And the very basic is supplying what the tree needs when the tree needs it. If you want to look at a tree and ascertain if it's been underwatered, the first sign you'll see, obviously drooping branches is a start, but damage to the leaf structure or needles or anything like that, always comes from the most extreme part. So when you look at a maple, Japanese maple, it's always the fine fingers that get damaged first and then work their way back up the leaf to the centre of the leaf. That's a nice way of assessing whether you've been supplying enough water to your trees or not. Anyway, that's about it for podcast number 1. Like I said, short, sweet, always going to be around about the 10-15 minute mark. No more, no droning on. Like I said, it's no polished diamond. It's not intended to be a slick edited podcast. It should be interesting. And if you want to see more about me or what I do, then check it out on Instagram or Facebook for Bonsai Matsu. Have a look at my webpage, bonsaimatsu.com. And please shoot me an email, get in touch via any of those messaging apps to let me know how I can help. It's been fantastic, and until next time, good bonsai.